So let's take another trip down Canadian history, military history, Navy history. And I mentioned that my father served in World War II. He was on the Sault Ste. Marie, and that was a Algerine class corvette that served in the Battle of Atlantic. And he was one of the escort ships. And the Canadian Navy, and I have this book, which lists literally, well, not literally, it does list every single ship, their captain, and where they served, what convoy they were in. It's quite detailed. And then there is another one that's illustrated history of the Royal Canadian Navy. Now, Canada, when 1939, when the war started, they only had 6 ships and they had 3,500 regular and reserve service people. So it grew into one of the largest navies in the world. And at the war's end, Canada had 95,000 men and women serving and 434 commissioned vessels, which included cruisers, destroyers, frigates, corvettes, and auxiliaries. There were 6,000 women that served among them, and they were in the Women's Royal Canadian Navy Service, and they were nicknamed the Wrens. The Battle of Atlantic was the longest and most important campaign because that's how goods went across the ocean from North America to Europe. And the escorting convoys were very important. And, we lost a few. And, but it was the only major theater of war that was commanded by Canadians. And the Germans actually did come ashore in Canada. They came up through the St. Lawrence Seaway. They had U-boats, and so we got rid of a few of those. But there, in all, at the war's end, the 25,000 merchant ships safely made their way back and forth to their destinations, bringing with them 165 million tons of supplies to Europe. And we lost 14 ships and we lost 2,000 service people. So the Battle of Atlantic was the stories I've got from some of the people is that besides, the U-boats, which were, they could be right under you, radar didn't always pick them up because back then technology was a little bit different. But so some ships were lost to the U-boats. But the other thing that, besides the Germans, the other thing that could capsize a ship was ice. So the Atlantic is well known for its rough seas. It's not clear sailing all the way across. And some of those storms were brutal. And if it was in the winter, when the waves wash over the deck, it would ice up. I mean, just think about it. If you splash water outside over something and it's 35 below, that's what would happen to the ship. So in order to save themselves from capsizing, they would have to work overtime just to chip ice off the deck of the ship. So that was one of the interesting stories that I heard from some of the service people. And anyway, there's so many great stories out of that and terrible stories. But it's one of the, not just because my father served in that theater, but it was so important to get the goods. I mean, Europe really relied on those ships to get their goods across. So it really kept the supply lanes open. And considering how many merchant ships got across without incident, that's a pretty good story as far as I'm concerned.